In 2060, there will be a spaceship that could travel fast enough to make it to other planets that are farther down. It would also be used to drop off and pick up people from other planets back to Earth. In order to go on different planets, you must provide extreme amounts of oxygen and food supply. According to NASA, last week, the 7 new and improved scientific instruments that will be on board the next robotic rover to head to Mars in 2020, along with high-tech cameras and ground-penetrating radar. One of the instruments on the rover will be a machine that will create oxygen.
2080, for other planets, we will need to make sure the population stays steady and does not decrease too fast. There will need to be a lot of other living organisms on these other planets. Also in January, there was information on an ice planet behind Pluto. Sources said it is about the size of Neptune.
On Earth, the population is around 7 billion people in the world. 2085. If we do not have new diseases, it would be very hard to keep people alive. But with the new medicines, we would be able to keep everyone, plus increase our population to more and more planets. Well, the ones we can reach.
In 2090, scientists are confident from the new research that the disease can be stopped in its tracks after tests revealed how it turns from being a benign illness into a full-blown killer. Gillius Sheldrick said, "With the new medicines, we could be able to cure any sickness. New medicines can also lead to making something like a pill or something that we can take that can help us live on other planets."
A mysterious and rapidly fatal disease breaks out around the crash site of a satellite. If there are new diseases breaking out, that could mean that the populations on the other planet could decrease, and that would not help us try and keep everyone alive.
3010, Curiosity's findings from analyzing samples of atmosphere and rock patterns do not reveal whether Mars has ever harbored living microbes, but the findings do shed light on a chemically active modern Mars and unfavorable condition for life on ancient Mars. According to Chemistry on Mars, scientists have been studying rocks on Mars and they predict that Mars can lead us to new chemical elements. We will soon be expanding the periodic table.
3015. Late last week, NASA announced the 7 new and improved scientific instruments that will be on board the next robotic rover to head to Mars in 2020. Along with high-tech cameras and ground-penetrating radar, one of the instruments on the rover will be a machine that will create oxygen.
In 3020, the first hints of life on Mars have been discovered by NASA. According to NASA, on Mars there has been a sign of water in the soil of the red planet, as NASA calls Mars. But if the existence of living, breathing microbes is confirmed, it will be the first evidence of life outside of Earth.
3025. War between humans would happen if some people do not want to be moved to other planets.
3030, there is a new solar system behind Pluto called the Kepler 186f. Kepler 186f resides in the Kepler 186 system, about 500 light-years from Earth in the constellation Cygnus. The system is also home for companion planets, which orbit a star half the size and mass of our Sun. The star is classified as an M dwarf or red dwarf, a class of stars that makes up 70% of the stars in the Milky Way galaxy.
Civilization. It's pretty easy to take it for granted, huh? We all live in it and rely on it every day. In fact, our modern lives are so embedded in this social construct that it can be quite difficult to imagine life without modern society. But what if all this were to come to an end? Imagine for a minute that our days on planet Earth were numbered. Say some sort of ecological disaster happened that meant the Earth could no longer support the human race. What could we do? Stay put and face extinction? Or perhaps take a lesson from civilization beyond Earth and look to the sky for a new home? But how realistic is this answer? Could we really abandon Earth and start afresh on another world? Now, I first played Civilization when I was just a wee boy with my dad and big brother. And you know what? That game taught me so much. I learned all the names of all the capital cities. I learned that you need magnetism for navigation in order to get the really big boats. But most important of all, I learned that despite what history tells us, Gandhi's a right f***ing bastard. But could this latest entrance in the series also teach us about space colonization? Well, I caught up with Lewis Dartnell, UK Space Agency Research Fellow and novelist, and I asked him if our days as a society on Earth were really numbered, could we also escape to the stars?
With our current technology today, it's not possible to pack 7 billion people into a spaceship and then travel not just within our own solar system, but in the enormous distances between the stars. With kind of current technology, it would take tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years to travel to the nearest stars in our galactic neighbourhood. But let's say that in the future, we do develop suitable technology. Maybe we discover new kinds of physics that allow sci-fi things like wormholes or warp drives. Then perhaps, maybe not taking all 7 billion or the entire population of the planet then, but a small cadre of colonists and send a seed of the Earth to another world and establish a colony in another solar system.
Okay, so let's say that we are part of this lucky group, members of this pioneering expedition. Once we actually make planetfall, before we could really start to build a civilization, we need to make sure that we don't just, die straight away.
Your priorities at first are going to secure your own safety, perhaps to check there's no indigenous life forms. And I don't mean just kind of dinosaur-like reptilioids that might come and crash through your habitat and start gobbling you, but bacterial life as well. You want to do some kind of biological survey to make sure there's nothing there that would threaten you if you start exposing yourself to that environment.
Ah yes, the prospect of alien diseases. You see, because our human immune systems are so attuned to life on Earth and attack from the microbes that live here, we would have very limited protection, if any, against microorganisms living on this new world. But what about after that point? Say we do the survey and everything seems to be fine. How do we actually go about turning this alien world into home?
Once you've settled down, the next steps are going to be to reboot an extraterrestrial civilization for yourself. So you're going to have to ensure transport networks. You're going to want to be able to ensure communication between your colonists. But even more fundamentally, you're going to want to start prospecting for the natural resources on this new planet. You're going to want to identify where the seams of metal ores are, so you can mine them and smelt them and produce metal to build more habitats and expand. Because the colony spaceship that you arrived in is only going to be able to provide a certain amount of resources before you've disassembled all of it, and you're going to have to start living off the land on the new planet you've arrived on.
Okay, so that's all pretty exciting, but remember, completely unfeasible with current technology. So let's get back to reality. If we were to colonize somewhere else, maybe in our solar system perhaps, are there any possible candidates?
The place in our solar system that humanity in our future is most likely to colonize and settle is going to be our next door neighbour planet. It is going to be Mars. If we do colonize Mars and build up this Martian population, it'd be by sending small numbers of people who make babies with each other, and there would be genuine Martians born in the next generation. But the long-term problems you're going to have to solve for colonizing Mars might be something like terraforming. How do you move beyond living inside a kind of space habitat where you have a pressurized capsule and grow your own food inside internal greenhouses? How do you make the next step to actually living outside on Mars and making the Martian environment a lot more terrestrial, a lot more clement? And the kind of technologies that people talk about, or the kind of challenges that will have to be solved, involve pumping up the atmosphere on Mars so it's a high enough pressure that water can once again flow on the surface. And maybe seeding the Martian soil with lichen or cyanobacteria that can start growing in very hostile conditions and releasing oxygen to start building up air that one day humans might be able to breathe without a spacesuit.
So this prospect of humans colonizing Mars certainly seems possible. But when? Is this likely to be something you and I get to witness? Or maybe even take part in?
Hopefully the first mission will be within my lifetime, within our lifetimes. But because Mars is so far away, and such a long mission, it'd be at least 2 years,